paid off for you. It's a gift.
That's the rumor on the street. That is the rumor on the street. But let me ask you this question, because I've been thinking a lot about this. So the first question that I really want to get your thoughts on is 20% of adults are still paying on student debt.
Yeah.
What does that do to their financial outlook for retirement?
You know, I had a buddy of mine that was just trying to buy some investment grade real estate, and he had a choice. Should I use this money that I've worked hard to get, and should I pay off my student loans, or should I buy real estate? And you know what he did?
No.
He paid off his student loans. And I was like, no, why would you do that? And he's like, why are you so upset? I'm like, it was such cheap, near free money, but your investment was going to pay you 25%. Hello? Do you pay off your debt to avoid a 3, 4, 5, or 6% payment? Or do you go buy something that's paying you 25, 35, or 50% a year? Yeah. People don't understand arbitrage. Really, this is what makes debt complicated. People lump it into this thing and they basically say debt is bad. I'm like, well, tell that to the billionaires that make money off of debt. Debt is not bad. Here's what's bad. We have one word in the English language that actually represents two words that are opposites. Okay. One is a good debt and one is a bad debt. And so, classic bad debt, credit card debt, consumer debt, a boat debt, car debt, buying things that don't make you money. Right. Now, by the way, if you're like, but Kris, I drive Uber all day. Well, then fine. Then maybe your car makes you money. But good debt is very different. You see, bad debt costs you money. Good debt makes you money. Like when I buy a piece of real estate, I'm going into debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt. But guess why I'm okay with it? Because I'm going to have leftover money after I service the debt. And that's what you've got to ask yourself. What is left over after you service the debt? Well, Kris, what do you mean? I have $5,000 that I owe on my credit card. I'm like, yeah. Is any of that money making you money? If you pause and say, for longer than 3 seconds, the answer is no. It's not making you any money whatsoever. That doesn't mean that it wasn't important to pay your medical bills. I'm not saying that you're stupid because you have consumer debt. There's a place for, well, shoot, I got in a tough place and I was between jobs, or the pandemic struck, and then I get it. There's a reason, but let's be honest. The only reason why we have Dave Ramsey in the world is because he wants to represent the people that are going into debt with money that they don't have, and it's going to catch up to them, and it's going to smack them in the face, and they might need to file personal bankruptcy. Meanwhile, I'm going millions of dollars in debt every day if I can. I want to go into as much debt as it's my goal. I want to have more debt than anyone else on the planet, because for me, my debts make me money.
How do you get over that? How do you get over that mindset, Kris? Because I think like many people, I grew up like debt is bad, debt is bad, debt is bad. And this concept of there's good debt and bad debt, right? How do you train your mind to say, this is good debt, this is bad debt?
Go give yourself a positive experience.
Okay.
Go do something real simple and stupid. Literally take the weekend and go fry up some donuts or make some lemonade. Go open a lemonade stand and put all $200 on your credit card. And then go freaking work your buns off to sell your product that day and hopefully bring in $300-400. And then at the end of the day, you can say, wow, I have $400. I'm going to pay off the $200 and I have $200 left over. And by the way, if I didn't have $200 to start with, that's where credit found its place. Go have a positive experience. Like, I dare you, I challenge you, use your credit card to make money. And it's not about making a lot of money. It's about having an experiment so that you can actually witness, wait a second, because that's what happened to me. Okay. I realized that, wait a second, I bought this tiny little property and I'm living in it upstairs and I'm renting out the basement, and the basement rent covers my mortgage. I'm living for free. But they told me that my expenses on my house are my most expensive, and that's what that's the biggest expense I'll ever have. How come I have no expense? I had an experiment. My wife liked it so much, living for free, that we then did it again. I took equity out of the house through a home equity line of credit. I borrowed $20,000 and I used it as a down payment on another property across town. My wife this time was terrified. She's like, we ain't living in that house. What if it never gets rented? What if we do rent it and they trash the place? Well, we rented it out. We did a lease option. The people gave us $3,000 up front, and they paid us enough money on the rent that there was $600 a month left over. And I remember in the third month, my wife comes to me, she says, hey, Kris, I don't know what to do with this extra $600 that comes in every single month. It's $1,800. Like, well, what have you been doing with it? She's like, I've been paying off the credit card. And I'm like, does that make you feel good? She's like, yeah, I'm happy. And I said, well, great. What do you want? She said, when can we buy more? Oh. So we learned that debt is beautiful if it makes you money. In fact, by the way, when you go to work and the average person brings in $40,000, $50,000 a year, and they're able to pay their bills, that feels good. What if you could clone yourself and be like, oh yeah, my clone's going to also go to work and make me another $40,000 to $50,000 a year. And by the way, I clone myself 100 times because I'm a greedy little, and now I'm making all this extra money. Guys, doing things that make money feels good, but there's a lot of opportunities out there that require money to make money. Yeah. And when you don't have the money to do it, it's called OPM, other people's money. And that can sometimes be something as simple as a credit card. So if the debt makes you money, do it. If the debt costs you money, avoid it.
Okay, wonderful. So this is a tricky part for me. I know I have some family who are doctors. I have a brother who's an attorney. Is there ever an appropriate time to take out student debt, Kris?
Okay, well, let's talk about student debt.
Talk about it.
Let's talk about it. You just said that you have a brother who's a what?
An attorney.
And a brother who's a what?
A doctor.
Guess what? You can't, you have to go to school and you have to pay a lot of money if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Yep.
Right? Unfortunately, the majority of people exiting college with degrees will never use them in the realistic marketplace. So we're starting to question, what is the purpose of a degree? Because 20 years ago, we were still racing up this hill that's like, if you don't have a degree, you're going nowhere in life. You're a nobody, you're a loser. You can't financially make it anywhere in life.
That's what I heard.
That is not the sentiment of the world today. It's rapidly changing. Companies are starting to realize that we're hiring for results. We're not hiring for trading dollars and hours. And so, yeah, if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant, yes, you got to go and you got to pay. And by the way, in that situation, a student loan is an investment, and you're investing into your career that should make you more money than another career or something that you like doing, and then you can pay it off. This is an investment. This is smart. You know what I have beef with? Well, I went and got a whole pile of student debt for a degree that I don't use.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, well, now we have to extrapolate. Well, like, for example, take my situation. Will my children go to college?
Are your kids going to college?
I don't know.
Oh, well, come on.
No, I'm telling you, I am breaking as many patterns as I can that I don't think are good. I don't think we should assume that people should just go to college.
Yeah.
Then we're assuming that they should go $100,000, $200,000 in debt, and for what? An aimless human being that's not ready to pick a career? Sure, let's spend tens of thousands of dollars on that human being. Pause. My children, if they want to go to college, here's what I'm telling them. Listen, you're 18, you're out of the house. College is a 4 or 5 year experience, for that bachelor's degree.
Yep.
And that's a time where you get to finish raising yourself. That's a time for you to experiment socially, join different groups. It's a time for you to experience possible careers. It's a time for you to learn. And it's a time for you to have more autonomy than you certainly had when you were living under my roof.
Yeah.
And to assume that environment has to be college and that you should write $100,000 to $200,000 check for someone that doesn't know what they want to do with their life, I think you're going to see more and more people questioning whether that is a smart move or whether that might be, in fact, a stupid move.
Yeah.
You might say, well, it sounds like you don't know what you want to do. Why don't you go work for a career? Is there an apprenticeship that you want to pursue? Is there an internship that you want to look at? Sure, go to college for 2 years and get your generals. Or you may not want to choose the most expensive college on the planet if you have freaking no idea what you want to do yet, right?
Right.
Or you might want to go move into the college scene and get roommates and enjoy college peripherally while you work. I'm all for education. I need people to understand this. I love education, but education for the sake of education without a clearly defined purpose, I'm not going to say that that's stupid. I'm just going to say that that is a bad investment. If you're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars, please know why. Please know why. And by the way, you can change your plans. You can change your plans. But, can I tell you what I see all too often?
Heck yeah.
I spent all this money. I got my degree. I decided after I spent all that money that I don't like that degree. Well, what did you decide? Well, I don't know. And then they go and get a job that is much lower than the field that they even went to school for, but they have all this debt. And I'm like, well, where's the responsibility to service the debt? Well, the payment's real small. Not a good plan. But you know what? If we were teaching kids about money when they're kids, then we wouldn't have as many of these problems. You see, does a college student really know what $20,000 a year is versus $200,000? My experience with most college kids is, dude, they're fairly clueless. They don't know how to value money. Yeah. One, because they haven't been living exactly on their own yet. So I do think there's a problem with going into massive amounts of debt. And what I'm really doing with my kids is I'm just asking, what do you want in life? What are you pursuing in life? And what is the most logical, successful path for education for you? And that doesn't have to mean the default of college. It might.
Yeah.
I would support my kids going to college, but that's not going to be without dad saying, let's be very serious about figuring out why you're here. And yes, there's a social aspect, but what is the career side of this? And I think too many people are just going, and we take it for granted.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. So when we talk about student debt, we talk a lot about, especially right now, the rhetoric is, okay, we're going to waive student debt. We're going to do all these different things. And so I got really, really curious, right? If we go through and we forgive the student debt, what is that going to do to the economy?
My question is not what it's going to do to the economy. My question is, how is that going to form and shape social practices and social thinking? I already think that society is moving towards a high degree of entitlement. You have millennials today that have 5 times less wealth than the previous 2 generations at age 30. Which means what will it look like for them when they're 50s and 60s? I think that it is going to look harsher for them than our previous generations did, because our previous generations were built on hard work and slave at the same thing and do it for whatever 40 years, maybe even longer. And this generation just doesn't think and operate that way. But at some point, you got to pay the Pied Piper. It's going to come crash. This house of debt, it's going to blow over, and then all of a sudden, someone's going to have to clean up this mess. And what does that mess really look like? Are millennials really amassing wealth? I mean, they're not keeping up with the prior generations, which means that retirement looks maybe a little bit scarier for them. And so that's my bigger worry. Is college is about it's about a career investment. We sometimes lump it up as education. I'm like, no, actually college for the most part is career education, right? You're learning a trade. You're learning how to do something for money. Have you done the math to figure out what your ROI is? And most kids have not.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? A lot of kids grow up telling themselves a story. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And then you're right, that ROI doesn't always pan out.
Well, it's going to be really weird. If you forgive all the student debts, then what about all the kids that are now going to college again? Are their debts going to be forgiven? Is college all of a sudden, are we going to disrupt that entire industry and say college is free to everybody?
That was my exact next question. How do you feel about free education? That's been kicked around a little bit.
I'll tell you that I think that we're trying to service a minority group that is struggling and may not have those opportunities. And that's beautiful. I want to find a way to make those opportunities available to them. On the other hand, what are we doing to the masses? Hey, free everything. Free health and free dental and free education, free internet, free everything, right?
Yeah.
Like everything is paid for. I lived in a country like that for 2 years. And let me tell you something. I never want to live in one like that again, because there is this socialistic thinking that there should be equality, and all of a sudden you become the loser if you look different than everybody else. And what happens to drive? What happens to motivation? It gets severely impacted. I lived in Germany for 2 years on the eastern side. This was still after the Berlin Wall had come down, but nonetheless, you had near 30% unemployment, and you had a very downtrodden people, and they had free medical. They went to the doctors once a week, and I got a chance to live in that society, full immersion. I did not like what I smelled. I did not like what I tasted. I love German food. I did not like the energy, and I didn't like the attitude. And so am I a little bit afraid that that's what's going to happen to America? Oh yeah, completely. And is that where the agenda is headed? Yeah, absolutely, completely. I think the worst thing that you can take away from a human is drive.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to be clear. I mean, we don't want our rights trampled on, but assuming that we're free, assuming our liberty is available, the one thing that you don't want to do is take away a person's motivation. And that's what a socialistic society does, is it is a downtroddening of the human spirit in the worst of ways. It's horrible.
Yeah. So this got me thinking a little bit. If you go to school, right, if that's a career path you choose, and you're trying not to take on student debt, right? Do you have any suggestions on side hustles? Like, how do you balance out that work life as a student? Like, what do you do to help offset that debt?
So my wife, when I married her, we were, she was a junior, I was a sophomore, and her parents paid for her college. And we went to Brigham Young University, had subsidized education costs. But my schooling, by the way, super inexpensive, was still around $50,000. I found a way to go to college and pay for all of it so that I didn't actually go into debt. And so I had a full-time job, And that's what I did during college, and a lot of others didn't.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that that's necessarily the right path, but it was the right path for me, because by the time I got out of college and graduated, I actually had also retired. Like, I didn't need to work anymore. And so I was very thankful that I hustled. I do have a regret though. I didn't really enjoy my college years. I didn't party. I didn't, I was very, very serious minded. Like, man, I want to be ahead. I do not want to be on time, and I don't want to be late.
Yeah.
I want to be ahead. And that was a very, very strong driving force that said, in every area of life, be early. Life is filled with seasons. Be early. Last thing I want is to be 50 years old with all my student loans. Are you kidding me? How late would you feel? Yeah, I picked these up 30 years earlier when I went to college, and still with my career and pay, I just haven't figured out how to get past it. It's like, that's scary to me. I think it's scary to get to retirement and only have a few $100,000. Most people have $200,000 to their name at retirement, and then maybe equity in a home, and they don't count that as anything because they don't want to give up or lose their home in retirement. And so, I think some of these sentiments that I have stems from the ridiculous nature of not doing the math. Do the math on big financial decisions. Do the math. For example, I'm a married man. I have some principles, a code that I live by. One of them's called keep it in your pants. You know how expensive divorce is, right? Like, I don't want to make any choices that would lead to that financial outcome. But on top of that, I'm motivated by just the love that I have for my wife.
Right.
That's a costly maneuver. And so you got to ask yourself, what are the other costly maneuvers? And every time something costs a lot, you better have a plan. I invest into my marriage every day because that's part of how I keep a really strong, healthy, amazing relationship. And I stay as far away as possible from having built everything only to tear it all down and say, time for a do-over. And it's not that way for everyone that goes through divorce, but I got buddies who are divorced, and while there are some perks, honestly, in some strange ways, there's a lot of disadvantage, and there's a lot that you have to live with. So we should be looking at our big choices and be asking, what are the consequences? With student loans, great, get student loans. Do you have a plan? Can you show me the plan? Can you articulate the plan? Have you written down the plan? Do you know how you're going to tackle this? And if you don't, then I don't think you deserve the debt. I think it might be a poor choice to get it if you can't answer such basic questions. We as a whole society, we're not really financially educated.
Yeah, I'd agree.
We don't learn it. We don't even learn budgeting.
Yeah. Which is a terrible problem, right? All right, so this is my last question, because I get the opportunity to be able to look at the analytics, look at the comments, see what's going on with all of our different shows. We have a ton of kids who like you, Kris, want to invest. They're in their 16, 17, 18-year-olds. Hey, I'm getting ready to make my next move. What should I do? What's your in parting, what's your piece of advice to these kids who are prepared to take that next step into adulthood and potentially college? Give them a final piece of advice.
What I would say, first of all, is college with a plan is good. But don't forget that college is not the only place where you get an education. Also remember that a college or trade school is where you go to learn about a career. You don't learn about money, you don't learn about wealth, and you don't learn about accumulation. What you really learn about is how to make money so that you can pay bills. You should be valuing additional education. You should not just be on social media, but you should be reading books. You should be taking courses. There's some courses out there only $200, $500, or $1,000. I mean, that's a lot when you're a teen, but you should invest in an education that will take you further than what college can or what career training can. You should educate yourself absolutely on the game of money. And I'll tell you where you should educate yourself. There are four things that everyone should get an education in, and don't let college get in the way of it. Number one, you should get an education into how to be your best self. It has nothing to do with college. How are you going to get the most out of yourself? How are you going to control your emotions and leverage them for good? How are you going to have the best self-esteem? How are you going to build, instead of an ego, like a true sense of who you are? You should have a plan for developing who you are, your identity. Number two, you should be taking courses and classes and everything on how to have amazing relationships, because people are the common denominator of what you're going to be dealing with through life. So number two, you should be getting an education, a world-class education. Never stop learning about how to improve communication skills and how to connect meaningfully, or how to be vulnerable, how to be authentic, and how to connect in these good ways. Number three, you should learn about your body. You should learn about how to manipulate your health. Your health is your wealth. At one point in your life, you'll trade all your wealth just to get some health back. You should be doing everything you can to learn how to manipulate your body to make it its highest and best self. And then number 4, you should learn the game of money because money is a game and the rules are out there, but they're not found in a university. You got to read many books to piece it together so that you can get a functional financial blueprint on how money really works. So put college in the place where it belongs. That higher education is career training so that you can live check to check. That is the reality for 95% of all people. So don't stop with college. In fact, your education should go on in all those other areas because at some point it's not money driven. It's about being happy and fulfilled and living a meaningful life. And that education is usually not found in the walls of a university. You're going to have to get a higher education.
Absolutely. Guys, Kris, amazing knowledge you dropped on us. Thank you so much for joining us on the Have It All show. We'll see you soon. Do the math. Parting words, do the math. Make sure your investment adds up. Thanks again, everybody. Have it all. See you soon.